Have you ever stopped to think that the Marineford War could have been the absolute end of the One Piece world? Think about it. What if the story Oda told us was just the absolute tip of the tragic iceberg? Just picture Kaido, the strongest creature in the world, smashing his club on Whitebeard right in the middle of Ace's execution. Or worse. What if the timeskip never really happened and the crew went straight into the new world? Bro, what we are going to unfold here today will blow your mind and completely change the way you look at the entire Grand Line. Get ready now, because we are going to rewrite One Piece history right here, right now. We are all tired of knowing that Kaido wanted to crash Marineford to turn everything into a massive bloodbath, but Shanks totally stopped the guy. But what if Red Hair had arrived late? On which side would Kaido fight? Man, knowing Kaido well, he does not care at all about the Navy or the Alliance. That monster's only goal would simply be crushing Whitebeard completely. If the Navy got in his way, he would crush the admirals too. The first bizarre thing about this scenario is that cowardly Blackbeard simply would not even show up. Teach is a coward, cold and calculating. With Kaido right there on the battlefield, he would crap his pants and stay hiding in his own corner. The Navy would realize right away that Kaido himself, with that destructive nature, was the biggest immediate threat, but they would strategically hold back just to watch the two Yonkos kill themselves. And bro, the brawl would be insane. Kaido and Whitebeard would clash in a way that half of Marineford would turn to dust within minutes. Marco and the commanders would try to help the old man, but Kaido's main lead performers there, King himself, Queen and the Mighty Jack, would definitely block everyone. It would be absolute chaos on Earth. With all this huge commotion, Luffy would still try to save Ace, and, in despair, he would unleash that conqueror's haki that shocked the world. But without anyone focused on protecting the rubber boy because of the huge raging Yonko war, Akainu would go after him, with blood in his eyes. Yes, Ace would strictly die protecting Luffy all over again. Except right at the exact moment the Fleet Admiral was about to land the final blow on Luffy, an otherworldly haki explosion would completely freeze absolutely everything there. Shanks would finally arrive. He would try to offer support to old Whitebeard, but the old guy, with his truly gigantic pride, would tell Red Hair to retreat, saying that this fight was solely his. In the very bitter end, the great Whitebeard, already sick and totally powerless, would fall to Kaido's final attack. Satisfied, the King of the Beasts would try to bail, but the Navy is not stupid. With Kaido completely exhausted and severely wounded, Garp, Sengoku, and the admirals would ruthlessly dogpile right on him, and very likely, they'd defeat the Yonko right there. In the meantime, Shanks would take advantage of the confusion and escape with Luffy safely. Bizarre, right? But wait, it gets worse. What if the 2-year timeskip had never actually happened at all? What if the whole 3D 2-yoi thing was taken completely literally, and the Straw Hats just reunited in exactly 3 days? I know there are some people who say, but the supernovas went to the New World and tanked it fine. Brother, do not be fooled. There is a truly colossal difference between Luffy and guys like Law or like Bege. The other supernovas have solid planning, they have strategy. Hawkins would draw tarot cards to avoid getting into messy situations. Law became a warlord just to get immunity. Bege married Big Mom's own daughter just to ensure his very survival. And what about Luffy? Luffy and his crew are a bunch of lunatics without the slightest instinct for self-preservation. They just attack whoever they feel like. In Sabaody, Luffy punched a celestial dragon in the face without thinking twice and thought he could face an admiral. When Kizaru finally stepped in there, the humiliation was undeniably historic. Without those 2 full years of training, without knowing the absolute basics of haki, they wouldn't last a month in the New World. They might even make it right past Fishman Island, but as soon as they stepped on Punk Hazard, game over. Caesar Clown would easily wipe out the whole crew. Without any armament haki, there is no way to touch a poison gas. Logia. The Straw Hat crew would meet their end in a brutal, shameful way right at the start of the second half of the Grand Line. That is exactly why the sacrifice and training of each one were the only thing that kept the King of the Pirates' dream fully alive. Now, switch gears and think about the most apocalyptic scenario of all time. What if it wasn't Ace on the execution stand? What if Luffy had been captured and sentenced to death by the world government? My good friend, if you think the Marineford War was huge, this would make that war look like a bar fight. Capturing Dragon's son and Garp's grandson would be the biggest shot in the foot in Navy history. First off, several kingdoms that Luffy saved would completely rebel at the exact same time. Alabasta, Drum, Dressrosa, Fishman Island. Everyone would send the world government straight to hell. The Navy would have to spread CP0 to contain global revolts, leaving their central defenses totally weakened. But the real problem is who would be knocking on Marineford's front door. We are talking about more than 100,000 people willing to die for Luffy. Just imagine the scene. The Straw Hats in absolute, complete fury, Boa Hancock's massive fleet, and the Kuja warriors fully buying the brutal fight, the remnants of the pirates who crossed his path before. The Revolutionary Army in full force, led by Dragon himself and by Sabo, descending from the sky. Shanks and the Red Hair Pirates arriving to honor the promise of the Straw Hat. And there is more. Do you really think Garp would sit back watching his two grandsons or his son take a beating? The Navy hero would switch sides right in front of everyone and beat the crap out of Akainu without even thinking twice about it. Sengoku, Kizaru, Fujitora, Ryokugyu, it doesn't matter. The Navy's military force would be crushed like insects against the greatest pirate and revolutionary alliance the world has ever seen. Mihawk had already called this exact shot way back then. The most terrifying power in the seas is not an overpowered devil fruit, but rather the ability Luffy has to transform absolutely anyone around him into an ally. And to finish this with a golden key, let's jump to the maximum delirium. What if Luffy had already awakened Gear 5 right there at Marineford? Imagine the rubber boy activating the powers of the Sun God Nika, right in the middle of Ace's execution. I will tell you the truth. I don't even think that Gear 5 in brute force would surpass the old and sick Whitebeard of that time, because the destructive power of the tremor was absurd. But Luffy's crazy Toon Force would completely change all the rules of the game. He would fall from the sky laughing, activate an absurd Conqueror's Haki that would make half the Navy fleet pass out foaming at the mouth. This time around, the admirals would definitely sweat cold. They wouldn't mess around with Luffy like they did in the canon. The looming threat would be real. Whitebeard would see the kids level and order Marco and the commanders to hold off two of the admirals, while he himself brought terror to the rest of the vast battlefield. Mihawk would do what he always does. He would pretend to fight, he would swing his sword once and then leave because he's not paid to deal with a deity laughing in his face. Luffy's path to the execution stand would be clean. Garp would not be able to stop his grandson, especially seeing him as that exact figure of freedom, and would let him pass. Sengoku would try to tank Luffy in his Buddha form, and bro, the beating would be completely comical and destructive. Luffy, using his Toon Force, would use Sengoku as a literal drum. He would come out with some serious injuries. After all, the Golden Buddha has lots of experience, but Ace would definitely be saved. Of course, the Marineford tragedy would still exact its heavy toll. Whitebeard had already accepted his fate and would be killed after being stabbed and ambushed by the Blackbeard pirates. Luffy would completely freak out over the old man's death. He would go after the admirals and injure them severely before his body gave out. When Shanks finally arrived to completely stop the war, both sides would be completely torn apart. But the brutal difference is that Ace would be alive. With the power of imagination and maximum freedom in his hands early on, Luffy would manage to bend reality just enough to save his brother from that execution. It is insane to think of the butterfly effect small changes would cause in this rich universe Oda created. But tell me, which of these scenarios do you think would break the One Piece world more? Leave it in the comments because I want to see your theories catching on fire. Smash that like button to support the channel, and do not forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next insane Grand Line analysis.